Compact crossovers are a dime a dozen. They come in all shapes and sizes, and it can get very difficult to try finding a vehicle that is going to be suitable for your lifestyle and your family. Some models are going to provide great driving dynamics and fun handling, but they're not going to be the most spacious. You're going to have vehicles that are efficient and also practical, but they might not be enjoyable to drive. And then you have the crossovers that have great technology, but they might be missing other aspects that consumers really love and are looking forward to. So what is the alternatives? What vehicles out there can you look at and say, it's going to give me everything I'm looking for? Well, you have the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, and also the Volkswagen Tiguan, which I'm behind the wheel of right now and today. This vehicle has received a facelift for the 2022 model. Looks a little bit more like the Mark 8 GTI, which hopefully is going to arrive sometime soon because I can't wait to test drive that hatchback out. But also it's going to give you up-to-date technology. So join me today as we're going to take a good long look at this crossover, see what is new for the 2022 model, and also see if it does give you everything you're looking for if you do have a family and also you want to have a vehicle that is also fun to drive as well on a daily basis. Now before I get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Quirk Volkswagen in Braintree, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Volkswagen inventory. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. In a matter of a few short years, Volkswagen went from being an outsider in the crossover markets to become a viable alternative in segments the larger Japanese brands, Ford and GM, have dominated for decades. Rather than continuing down the road of offering a quirky and substantially smaller crossover that we saw for the first generation Tiguan, Volkswagen got serious by crafting and designing one of the largest offerings in the compact SUV market. Of course, the all-new Taos would allow this German manufacturer to expand its portfolio and return to subcompacts. But as of very recently, the Tiguan has established itself as being an integral part of the lineup, not only here in the US, but across the globe. Starting off with pricing, the Tiguan we have today comes in at just over $35,000, which is typical for a vehicle of its size and trim level. For buyers on a stricter budget, the S will cost you around $27,000. But it's not just the price range where Volkswagen nailed the second generation Tiguan, as they listened to what consumers want most, and that's interior space and practicality. Compared to its predecessor, this compact crossover grew 10 inches in length and was widened by an inch to be more reflective of the segment, but also to be on par with the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V, which are perennial powerhouses in this market. Even better, due to the added length, Volkswagen could offer an optional third row when not many others dared to try turning a 5-seater into a 7-seater. While not the most versatile or off-road capable, the Tiguan will give drivers about 7.6 inches of ground clearance to take on unplowed or unpaved roadways. But one of the reasons why we're here is because of the new looks, specifically up front, which now follows the same design path as the Mark 8 GTI and Golf R. Refreshed headlight housings replace the rectangular shape that's seamlessly integrated into the front grille. But now with streamlined and aerodynamic aesthetics, the Tiguan's minor facelift goes a long way to keep Volkswagen's compact crossover relevant in a market that's constantly changing. Exclusive to the R-Line model are gloss black accents that enhance the front fascia as a whole, especially when looking at the lower portion of the front bumper. While not present on this trim, Volkswagen decided to go a bit more upmarket in terms of cosmetic features for the SEL, adding an LED strip that runs through the emblem and flows into the headlights, which we're starting to see for new models in the lineup. Moving over to the side profile, the SE R-Line trim will be sitting on 19-inch black alloy wheels to provide a really nice color contrast on this model, but to also give the Tiguan more of a sportier look. It should be noted that with the slightly bigger tire size, that may play a role in ride quality. However, during our time with this crossover, cruising around was quite pleasant. You'll have gloss black folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators, to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, no real changes for 2022, as it retains the same rear fascia as last year. The key differences are all up front and new color and wheel options. However, the R-Line does give the Tiguan a striking road presence, and while we don't look at this crossover as being dynamic or enthusiast-driven, the gloss black accents add an upscale vibe to this vehicle, and it stands out as it passes you by. Even with its boxier dimensions, the sharp body lines that extend the length of the Tiguan and the thinner C-pillars have a profound effect, as it's not going to just blend in on the road with its competitors. Under the hood, the Volkswagen Tiguan is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that puts out 184 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. A topic that's received a lot of attention with this compact crossover is the performance numbers, or for some critics, the lack thereof. Yet, the Tiguan is not falling behind its closest rivals, and in fact, when compared with the Nissan Rogue, Honda CR-V, or Subaru Forester, buyers may find that simply not having a CVT like the 3 Japanese competitors just listed puts the Tiguan ahead in the driving experience category. For our model today, we do have Volkswagen's 4Motion all-drive system to take on winter road conditions, but front-wheel drive does come standard. When it comes to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 23 miles per gallon in the city and 30 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by Volkswagen's VTEX leatherette seats for the SE R-Line, with the driver's side being 8-way power adjustable, while passengers will have to find their ideal seating position. As expected, they will be heated to provide additional comfort during the colder months of the year. Despite not being too aggressively bolstered, these seats will keep you in place and offer a good amount of support. In front of you, and now standard for all 2022 models, is Volkswagen's digital cockpit to replace the analog gauges and help modernize the interior. It should be noted that the SEL R-Line trim will have the larger 10.5-inch display, which is going to be of higher quality and resemble what we see in Audi products. By using the buttons mounted on the heated leather-wrapped steering wheel, you can customize what you see in front of you and showcase relevant information as you drive. Then taking a glance over to the infotainment system, the layout doesn't drastically change compared to the prior model year. However, touch-sensitive buttons will take time to get used to if you own an older Volkswagen. When it comes to user-friendliness, resolution is very high quality for this segment, and the response time is almost immediate. Buyers should be happy to see the physical dials for the volume and tuning make a return. And while there may be a minor learning curve with everything going touch-sensitive, this user interface is easy to use. You'll have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, but to receive onboard navigation and the Fender audio system, you will have to upgrade to the SEL R-Line. As always, you'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory to go along with front and rear parking sensors, but a top view angle will be equipped on the SEL. As we move our way down the dashboard, new is the touch-sensitive buttons for the dual-zone climate control, 3-level heated seats, and front and rear defrosters. You can also adjust the climate settings from the head unit if you prefer. Below, a wireless phone charging pad to go along with 2 USB-C inputs and a 12-volt outlet will give you a place to store your phone or a wallet. And for the center console itself, no surprises or new additions, as a familiar layout to Volkswagen's built on the MQB platform will make it easy to turn off the auto start-stop function or to access your park assist features. There will be a dial for the drive mode selector, not only for when you're on the pavement, but also when you encounter winter road conditions or the off-road. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now for passengers in the back, this right here is where the Volkswagen Tiguan will set itself apart from some of its closest rivals, like the Mazda CX-5. I even throw in the Ford Escape just because with its low roofline, and even though you can't adjust the seats forwards and backwards, it might not be the most conducive for taller passengers overall. But when it comes to the Tiguan, it really isn't too much of a surprise where you do have a good amount of legroom, because if you are familiar with the Volkswagen lineup, you see it's across the board, such as with the Passat and even the Arteon. They're great options if you don't want to buy a crossover. But if you're specifically looking for a vehicle that is practical and spacious, the Tiguan is a great option. Now, just for reference, this seat is adjusted all the way back. It's also on a recline, and I have an abundant amount of legroom to work with here, relatively speaking. Now, of course, I'm not the tallest person out there. I'm around 5'5", but I do believe that if you're on the height of 5'9" or 5'10", you could sit back here pretty comfortably, even if there's someone around the height of 6 feet or above sitting in front of you. And that is just really fantastic to see. Also, when it comes to headroom, even though it has this massive panoramic moonroof, it doesn't really affect the headroom at all. So I do think taller passengers are going to be quite happy. But here is the real deal maker or breaker, and that is the center seat. Because even for some compact crossovers, you're not going to be able to fit a third person back here. Now, we do have an aggressive center hump, but it's not wide, so it's not going to affect rear legroom. It's not really going to affect shoulder room either. So I do believe that you could fit 3 people back here. Might not be 3 average-sized adults, but if you do have 3 kids, they should be more than comfortable back here. I think that when you're looking at a family-friendly crossover at this price range of around $35,000, or even if you are looking at an S model for around $25,000, $26,000, this is really one of the best options out there. It's certainly comparable and competitive to the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V. And also, I do think that when you are comparing it to a Subaru Forester, this is one of those vehicles that you can say, yeah, you can fit a third person back here. So that is just really fantastic to see overall for this vehicle. Then moving over to the driver's side, I adjusted the seat to someone of my height of around 5'5", and I have an abundant amount of legroom to work with here. So what you're looking at with the Volkswagen Tiguan when it comes to shoulder room, headroom, and even legroom, this is one of the best options out there. So if you do have maybe taller kids, or you have taller passengers in the back all the time on a daily basis, or maybe just looking for a vehicle that is more practical than some of the competitors in this market, definitely take a look at the Tiguan, simply because it's one of the best family-friendly crossovers in this price range. Also back here, you will have 2 rear air vents to go along with a USB-C input and 12-volt outlet. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seat, you're looking at right around 37.5 cubic feet of room to work with. Now, practicality is the one metric that really keeps vehicles from competing with the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, Ford Escape, and Nissan Rogue. But as we've seen throughout this entire generation for the Tiguan, the 2022 model is giving you the exact same amount of space that we see in the Toyota RAV4. However, it is about 2 cubic feet less than the Honda CR-V. You might not even notice that difference at all. And then when compared with the Nissan Rogue and Ford Escape, it's actually better, it's more practical. And as we saw with the second row seats, you're gonna have enough room for everything that you need. So you're gonna be able to have those 3 kids in the back, but also you're gonna have the room where you can load up all their luggage. I think you could easily fit 5 or 6 bags of luggage back here, no problem, and still have enough room for anything else you're going to be carrying with you. And that's why the Volkswagen Tiguan has done quite well for itself over the last few years. It's really appealing to consumers in this country. Also back here, on either side of the rear cargo area, you will have some compartments for some smaller items, such as your first aid kit, or maybe even some car detailing equipment. So that way, they won't be spilling onto your more valuable items. Also great to see, and very convenient, you will have quick release tabs that will lower the second row seats. So if you are in a hurry, just pull on those, the second row seats will fold down, and now you can be on your way onto whatever adventure that you're going to be having. So we are now behind the wheel of the 2022 Volkswagen Tiguan R-Line, and it's really phenomenal to see where this generation has gone over the last few years, because The predecessor was basically a subcompact crossover, and you really couldn't cross-shop it with a Toyota RAV4 or Honda CR-V, and the sales figures reflected that. Americans want bigger vehicles, they want practicality, they want interior space. And for the second generation, the Tiguan is definitely offering that. And as you guys probably noticed, there's a lot of body roll here with the Tiguan, but let's get into the performance right here since we are getting on the highway. And it's certainly not the quickest, but when you look at the 0 to 60 times, it falls right in line with the CR-V and Toyota RAV4, even though a lot of journalists want to bring up the fact that it does not have a GTI-tuned turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It might have a 0 to 60 time of around 7 to 7.5 seconds, but you can get on the highway pretty quickly. And what I like here with the Tiguan is that they're really focusing on what buyers are looking for in this market, because enthusiasts are going to say, why don't we get the R variant? Why aren't we getting 300 horsepower out of this model? And there's really no incentive for Volkswagen to do that. When you look at the closest competitors like the CR-V, RAV4, Subaru Forester, they don't have performance variants. You could probably throw in the hybrid model for the Toyota RAV4, but outside of that, there's really no sporty vehicles in this segment that Volkswagen needs to worry about. But also, I think Volkswagen tends to really play it safe when it comes to their performance for vehicles outside of the GTI and Golf R, because they are somewhat competing with Audi at that point. But what you have here is a vehicle that is far more enjoyable to drive simply because it has an 8-speed automatic transmission compared to the Japanese rivals, which do offer a CVT. And right then and there, I feel that the Tiguan is going to be a better option right off the bat when it comes to performance, because again, if you look at the 0 to 60 times, falls right in line. But also, compared to another vehicle that I think is a great one-on-one matchup, which is the Hyundai Tucson. The Tucson's 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine just isn't that good. I don't like that engine at all. Whereas this feels a bit more peppy, even though it is sluggish in a 0 to 60 acceleration time, but it's a bit more fine-tuned. It feels a bit more pleasant to drive and accelerate in. But also the Tiguan, with it being German-made, with it having that German performance and that German engineering, it feels smoother as well. This vehicle feels really nice and comfortable as you are driving on the back roads. The suspension, the handling, even the steering wheel, I'm pretty surprised it has very aggressive 10 and 2 positions. Not something you really expect for a vehicle that's not a sport variant, not a sporty vehicle by any means. More importantly, what I like about the Volkswagen Tiguan is that if you were to eliminate all the eye-catching aesthetics and features, if you were to eliminate the digital gauge cluster, the infotainment system, and we just focused on the basics, you have a good amount of interior space where you can fit a third person in the center. You also have a good amount of cargo room as well, one of the best in this segment, so it's practical. When you look at the size of the Tiguan, it's not too big, but also it's not small either. It's a vehicle that is perfect for buyers on a budget. When you look at the pricing, even for this model, it's around $35,000. That's not too bad for a compact crossover in 2021. From a driving aspect and the dynamics, what I really like here is that when it comes to the handling and the cornering, typical German engineering where it feels pretty smooth, but it's not too weighted either. It has a nice balance. I think if you were to have a GTI or R variant for the Tiguan, I think having a stiffer suspension would definitely be beneficial. But for a vehicle like this, I think it's giving buyers everything they're looking for. It is pretty fun, but also when it comes to the things that you're not going to notice as an enthusiast, such as front vision, you'd have plenty of it. The A-pillars, super thin, nicely placed side mirrors, and you do have a decent amount of vision in the back. You have a good amount of interior room as well, plenty of shoulder room. It is far more spacious than some competitors in this market. Also, of course, you gotta love the panoramic moonroof. That just brings in a lot of natural light, but also makes the interior seem a lot bigger than it really is. But then when it comes to the interior quality aspect and just the driving environment that you have here to work with, The fact that Volkswagen gave you the digital cockpit standard, they have a nice digital information display, and of course, I love the infotainment system here, because when you look at what Volkswagen is doing with the GTI, the Golf R, and even the ID4, they're moving away from physical buttons. But actually, this isn't too bad. You do have physical dials for the volume and tuning, and touch-sensitive buttons, which are pretty similar to the layout that Volkswagen has been giving us for the last handful of years. But then when it comes to the dashboard, somewhat soft touch materials. Obviously, you're not going to have an Audi Q5-like experience going with the Tiguan, and that's just to be expected. But this is pretty much on par with most of the compact crossovers in this market. While some people are going to bring up the fact that you do have a new steering wheel, and some people don't like it necessarily, I actually think that the materials that they use for the leather-wrapped steering wheel feel pretty nice in the hands. It creates a lot of confidence and inspires to drive a bit more aggressive in the corners like I'm on right now. And even though you are going to feel the body roll, it does feel a bit more athletic than its closest rivals, for sure, more than the Hyundai Tucson. Now, I will be honest though that off the line it is a bit slow, but again, the fact that you don't have a CVT kind of makes that a moot point in my opinion. I think if you are looking for something a little more aggressive and sporty, you're going to have to go a little more upmarket for that. But what Volkswagen is really emphasizing here is practicality, family friendliness, and consumers have responded quite well to what Volkswagen has done to this generation. I also think that with the facelift, it looks a bit sporty, looks more aggressive, not as squared off and boxy, so that should do well and fare well with people looking for something a little more streamlined and cutting edge. But after this test drive, I see why the Tiguan is the best-selling model in the lineup. I really felt that the Atlas made Volkswagen a bit more of a viable option in the US compared to where they were in the past. Even though everyone loves the Touareg and what that offered, the Atlas was speaking to consumers who do have families. It wasn't necessarily speaking to buyers that are enthusiasts. And I think Volkswagen is doing the right thing by focusing on the consumer that is just looking for a practical daily driver. Because think about it, when you look at the price point at around $25,000 to start, and the model I'm in right now is around $35,000, you could easily have a two-car garage where you have the Tiguan and then also a GTI or Golf R, and now you have the fun car for the weekends, and then you have the daily driver that is perfect for going to work, dropping the kids off at school, going to soccer practice. It has that practicality. It's that road trip vehicle, and not a lot of vehicles in this segment are going to give you that. They're not going to give you a driving experience that is still pretty sufficient for this price range and market. But also, you have that interior space as well. I just think that Volkswagen has figured it out, because you have really an affordable price range, and you have a vehicle that I think feels pretty smooth, and it gives you a little taste of what the Germans are offering. So in closing, what are my final thoughts for the 2022 Volkswagen Tiguan? Well, basically it is a minor facelift. It's meant to be that vehicle. It's going to bridge the gap between the current generation and what will be coming down the road. But also it's to keep this vehicle fresh and relevant in this segment, as we're seeing with the Hyundai Tucson and also the Kia Sportage. That's going to be more tech-driven than what we currently see from, say, a Toyota RAV4 or Honda CR-V. But the fact that we have a full digital gauge cluster is great to see, although I would recommend, if you want to have more of an Audi Q3 or Q5 experience, go with the SEL, and of course you're going to get that Fender audio system to really make listening to your favorite music much more enjoyable. Now, controversial from some people and some enthusiasts, you do have touch-sensitive buttons. Now, we're seeing this with the Mark 8 GTI, Mark 8 Golf, and also the Volkswagen ID4, but there's one key difference, and that is the fact that your infotainment system is still within arm's reach, and you do have somewhat physical buttons, even though they are touch sensitive. Still same layout as what we saw from the prior model year, so that shouldn't really be much of a learning curve. And then the climate control settings are really closer and within arm's reach, and that might be a little more user-friendly than what we see with the ID4. Because I will say that with the ID4 that I featured earlier this year, wasn't too big of a fan of the touch-sensitive buttons. But for this particular layout and for the Tiguan, I think it does work out pretty well. Then, as I talked about during the test drive, I love the steering wheel as well. Feels very Audi-esque, and we're starting to see that a lot with Volkswagen products now, where we're starting to see some of that trickle down, like the full digital gauge cluster. I think even the infotainment system is more of a trimmed down version of Audi's MMI user interface. Might not be as in-depth or tech-driven, but you can certainly see the quality and even the responsiveness and just the layout. It's very similar to what we experience in newer Audis. Now, even though the steering wheel is aggressive with the 10 and 2 positions, and it definitely gives you that confidence, remember, this does not have sports tune suspension, so you are going to feel the body roll in the corners. However, I do think it complements the driving experience quite well, especially where the steering is nice and smooth, not weighted too heavily, but it does give you a good amount of feedback. Then, of course, when it comes to the driving dynamics and the performance, even though it's not the most powerful vehicle out there, I still think having a traditional automatic transmission puts this vehicle ahead of its Japanese rivals for sure that still use a CVT, such as the Nissan Rogue and also the Subaru Forester. But also, when you are comparing it with the Hyundai Tucson, I think you are going to find that this turbocharged 4-cylinder engine is better than the 2.5 under the hood of that Tucson. But really, though, at the end of the day, it comes back to the practicality and the interior space, because when you're looking at the amount of cargo room that you have, also the ability to fit a third person in the second row, not a lot of competitors can say that. And when you are looking for a family-friendly crossover that is comfortable, that is smooth, that does give you modern technology, the Volkswagen Tiguan is certainly going to provide all of that for you. And that's why I think when you look at what this vehicle has achieved over the last few years, this right here is why Americans are really responding to Volkswagen and are really enjoying what this vehicle provides. Even though it might not be a vehicle that enthusiasts love, it's a vehicle that consumers with families can certainly appreciate and enjoy. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.